Today I'm joined by Danica Connors. Danica has been on the show multiple times over the past year to help share her wisdom and knowledge over the Gaelic, Wiccan, and pagan festivals and ceremonies that we have throughout the year. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about Beltane. So what Beltane is, how we can appreciate and honor Beltane, maybe some of the rituals that we can practice personally to honor this time of the year. There are many different holidays that we've talked about, so if you want, you can reference the previous episodes. But Danica is a beautiful wealth of knowledge, has a very just amazing excitement about talking about this content, which makes it very infectious for me. So I love having her on the show. I love her enthusiasm, sharing what she knows. So hope you get something out of the conversation. We will see you on the other side. But first, a message from our sponsor. Our healing journey can be difficult and might feel lonely at times. That's why I love sound baths. Where we can get together in a community, we intrinsically support and feel supported by others. And that combined energy can help us go deeper into our own healing journeys. And all you have to do is just lay there for 1 hour and listen to beautiful healing sounds. I'm a sound healing practitioner, and I hold sound baths on a regular basis in the greater Seattle area. You can find my next sound baths on my website at adamrealhealing.com. That's Adam, A-D-A-M, Real, R-I-E-H-L, Healing, H-E-A-L-I-N-G.com. AdamRealHealing.com. Your healing is worth your time. And now an uninterrupted podcast with Danica Connors. All right, welcome back to the show. Talking again with one of my favorite guests, one of my return patrons that just comes in and just drops immense knowledge on us, and I just love it so much. So Danica Connors is back with us. For some reason, I just almost called you Danica Patrick, the race car driver.
You know, it's so funny. When she first became famous and started doing her thing, I got a lot of that. People were like, Danica, you mean Danica Patrick? And I always say, I'm older, I came first.
There you go. Yeah. It's funny because I don't watch racing. I'm not very familiar with sports. And for some reason, when I was saying your name just now, I'm like, it's Connors. I don't know why Patrick just popped into my head.
And there are only a couple of other Danicas that I've found in my lifetime. There was a Danica who starred in The Wonder Years and years ago, the television show.
Oh, yeah,
the
with
young
Fred
girl.
Savage. And,
okay. That's her. And then one other time I was getting out of a car at a Renaissance festival. Started to get out of the car, and I hear somebody outside go, Danica, get your butt back in the car now.
Oh, shit.
And I froze.
Yeah, the little kid in you was like,
froze. And I saw this little girl go running by the car. I was like, okay, the odds of this moment, but here we are. It was fantastic.
And so just on that real quick, I was teaching a yoga class last 2 Sundays ago. And Sunday morning yoga. I've been teaching that class for almost 10 years. Like I just love that community. A lot of good people, a lot of just like fun energy. And every once in a while, my fiance Monica comes. Like she'll get out and she'll have free time and she'll come in. And so, you know, there's like 50 people in this class. I walk in, I'm like, hey, my name's Adam. I'll be guiding us through our practice. And everybody's like, hey. And Monica goes, hello, Adam. Just like that. And like she does that to me. It's like this kind of internal joke we have between us, you know. She doesn't mean anything malicious by it. It's just like one of those like stern moments. And the whole fucking yoga group was like, and then they started laughing and was like, okay, you just had a snapshot of how weird our relationship is. Good for you guys.
Absolutely.
Oh, man. Oh, God. But today, we're here to talk about other weird stuff and amazing stuff. So we're going to talk about Beltane. So if you haven't been following, or if you have been following along, Danica has been gracing us with her presence on a repeated basis to inform us of all of these beautiful, like Gaelic, pagan, Wiccan, you know, just like these natural representations of holidays maybe, or points in time to where there's like delineations, right? A lot of the holidays that we have in Christianity have been kind of taken from a lot of the information, a lot of some of the rituals from a lot of these pagan or Wiccan type holidays or recognitions. And so the goal for Danica and us is just to kind of help us understand this, help us understand what they are, where they've come from, what some of the celebrations are, how we can recognize it. And so we're making our way to May. And so when this episode releases, it'll probably be the 25th of April. So right before we'll go into Beltane, and then you'll have it, the understanding to celebrate it. But you know, and I say this all the time, that, you know, as I start to recognize these celebrations and these rituals, they make a little bit more sense to me. It helps me tap into the circadian rhythm of the world, right? And my body, because we're all linked into that. And, for me, when I can start to move with the seasons and the natural flow of this planet, things seem less hard because it doesn't feel like I'm moving against something. Right. And what I like in that too is like when I finally understood how much my ego was driving the boat, and how much that desire of me doing something was also the impetus for all the sorrow that I felt, because I kept wanting and wanting and I need to go do this because I've already decided, my ego has decided to do this. And we soften that and allow, and I use this reference a lot, but it's like if you've ever seen Donnie Darko, and in Donnie Darko there's that tube of gel that kind of comes out of his chest and it shows him the path of hey, you're going to go from the couch into the kitchen, and then there's this thing over there, then you're going to go back by your dad and all this shit, right? I kind of visualize that now when I'm trying to okay, I want to go do this thing, but my body's telling me to go to yoga. And I'm like, okay, now let's just sit and think about that. How bad do I want to go to the movies, and how bad do I need to go to yoga? Okay, my body's telling me to go to fucking yoga. Right? Get out of your own way. And so a lot of this stuff, Beltane, Imolk, all these things that you've graced us with the honor of your knowledge has really helped me and helped our listeners.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, it's really interesting. Once you start, it takes a lot of listening, to go, what is the pattern? Where am I? Whether that is from a macrocosmic style, being, am I seasonally doing what I need to do?
Right.
To microcosm, to how does that season affect me, and how is that symbolically kind of coming through my life? And that's, I talk about it all the time, how important that is to remind us that we are a part of this planet. The planet's a part of us. We are not separate from it. Mm-hmm. So to be a part of some of those patterns and to listen, whether it's through meditation, kinesiology, however you get there, to go, you know what? This is how things are moving. Let's see what it's like to be a part of that flow.
Yes.
Does it, I'm a big fan of, don't, put your money where your mouth is. Test it. Mm-hmm. Test the theory.
Yep.
Get in there and go, if I'm eating with the seasons, or if I'm shifting my actions a bit with the seasons, do I feel happier, healthier, more whole? And, find out for yourself. I'm a big fan of just don't do it because somebody told you to.
Right. And that lots of listening statement that you made, that's, so when I work with my clients a lot, I'll hear a lot of that. I can't hear my body. I can't hear my intentions. I can't hear my higher self. And it's not that you can't, we've just grown away from the understanding of it. It's like an atrophied muscle, right? So if you haven't worked out, ran, done any kind of physical activities for a long time, and your body goes into that atrophied muscle kind of idea, the first time you work out and you pick up a weight and you do a bicep curl, that might be the hardest thing you've ever done, right? And does that mean you should stop it? No, just do one and put it down and be like, okay, let's recover from that. And then tomorrow do two, or whatever you want, right? But it's the constant practice of, because we've gotten so far away from hearing a lot of what's being told, whether it's from our body, from nature, from Mother Earth, from everything, all of these aspects that we could hear when we have our intuition dialed in, and we all have it. It's not a specialty that only some people have. Some people's are stronger because they've either worked with it or been whatever reason, but listen and don't stop listening, because the more you listen, the more you tune into the frequency. Right? It's like those old band radios, right? If you were in Seattle trying to hit 99.9, the rock station, but you're at 99.7, you can kind of get the understanding there's music right around there. Maybe you hear a guitar, maybe you hear a kick drum, but it's kind of staticky. But as soon as you get to 99.9 and that antenna dials in, you're like, oh, fucking hell, there's music here. Yeah. And that's the same with us. We're slowly banding from side to side, getting our human frequency dialed in. And it takes practice.
I love that. Our human frequency dialed in.
Dial that thing in. Hear what's out there.
Oh, I love that. And the funny thing is with Beltane in general, it tends to be a frequency that is hard to ignore.
Right.
This is one of them that's kind of just so infectious. Even if you're not aware of what's going on, you're feeling it anyway, and you're aware of it in different ways. So, Beltane or Beltane, depending upon, Irish Gaelic, the Beltane, it translates in Scottish Gaelic, it's more that like May Day, and then in Irish Gaelic, it's like the month of May type of thing, and or also the combination like bell is another word that means like light. And it was kind of named after, there are multiple gods that they're kind of like, well, was it after this one or this one or this one or this one? It's like Bellinus, Bellin. I mean, there's so many of them, whether they're Gaelic or Roman, or there's so many. And a lot of them were sun gods, right?
Which makes sense.
Yes.
Fire ceremonies.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is, so Beltane is one of the Celtic festivals on the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. And the Celtic festivals are kind of the in between the cross quarters, and they are the dusk till dawn ones. So you can usually do the day before to the day of. So for Beltane, it's the 30th to the 1st.
Okay. So dusk on the 30th till dawn on the 1st.
Yes.
Okay.
So you got it's dusk to dusk. So
dusk to dusk. Gotcha.
dusk to dusk. Sorry about that. Dusk to dusk. So you've got 2 days in there that you can kind of play with in that. But this festival, there were basically 2, in the ancient Celtic regions, there were 2 seasons, summer and winter.
Really?
That's really the main 2 recognized seasons.
Okay.
And as things kind of developed and agriculture did more of its thing, then we had others. But those were the 2 main ones. And Beltane is the beginning of summer, right? So it is, it's on the opposite spoke of the wheel when we look at the circle of the 8 festivals of Samhain. So you have Beltane, which recognizes the beginning of summer, and Samhain, which recognizes the beginning of winter. Okay. And they're both fire. They're big fire festivals. Those tend to be, Beltane is a gigantic fire festival.
Yeah.
Huge. Bell, fire. The need fire. It is about how this growing light and heat affects us. And every single one of the rituals around it was about bringing it closer in. How can we bring it closer? How can we have it purify our lives? How can we have it bless our lives? And in the day and age, it was, how can it bless our crops and our cattle and our people? So it was all about purification and fertility. Fertility. This is the big one when it comes to that. And when I was talking about the feel, there are very few people that don't start, even if you're having the worst time of your life, in a weird way, somehow when May starts happening and heat starts becoming a little more present, everybody gets sassy. There is this infectious, bubbling energy that starts to crawl under your skin, up and out, into starting to just have that spring in your step and that cute little sassiness that just floats into almost everything you do. And everybody feels a little more sexual and a little more energetic and a little more creative and a little more all of it.
Yeah.
Right? And that, especially in paganism, sexuality was a huge sacred act and part of the magic of how this planet exists. How life exists on this planet is the union of, whether you want to say masculine or feminine, positive or negative, yin and yang, whatever you want to say, it's when those 2 come together that life is created as we know it.
Yeah. It's so funny because the more I learn about these beautiful rituals that you talk about, Beltane, Imbolc, all these different things, Samhain, and I look at religion. And I have my own personal, issues with religion. It's very personal, but I understand it works for some people. But when something like this comes up about the sexuality, right? One of the things that really kind of hit me a little while back when I was reading about this is how how many different ways the church has kept us from accessing the divine, right? Now, with the installation of religion, now we have to go through an intermediary, right? So there's a pastor, a father, a holy man, a clergy, whatever it is, that I have to go to that person so that person can talk to God and then give me the answer, right? Bullshit. There's the act of sex, which is our direct connection to the fucking divine. I mean, if you're an adult that's had an orgasm, or a human that's had an orgasm, you recognize how, yes, good that feels, but also how connected the body feels to either the person that's helping you with that moment or to the divine that's around you. There's like this shutting down of the ego, of all the things that take us away from this humanity and just show us how connected we are.
Yeah, I think so in paganism, at least in Wicca, right? Mm-hmm. There is this honoring of the sexual piece of it, and in the development when Gerald Gardner first brought Wicca kind of to this country, within Wicca there is what is called the Great Rite, and it is enacted. Now, depending upon, like in his groups, right, that was sex between the high priest and the high priestess, and that happened, and that happened. Most of the time, usually others left the circle, right? And those two had sex in circle, right? And there's all this ritual around the female being the altar of life, right? Yes. And the male being the active, energetic, impregnating spark of life, and how those come together. And that's part of what we celebrate here. Whether it's, I'm just going to say it now. We say this at the end, but I'll skip to it now. One of the things that you can do to celebrate this time is please have sex with your loved ones.
There you go.
Or celebrate your sexuality in whatever way feels right for you.
Love that.
Because it is sacred, right? So, in Gardnerian Wicca, that was a part of the process. And there's also a symbolic part of the process, which is the athame, or the witch's blade, is symbolic of the active principle, right? And the chalice, or the cauldron, is symbolic of the womb, or the receptive principle, right? So if you have the symbolic act of taking an athame and inserting it into a cauldron, it is absolutely the symbolic act of union, of bringing the union of the active and the receptive principles together. Right? Wow. So you have these symbolic acts, these very physical acts, however that works for you. But it is important, even for yourself during this time, to kind of take a moment and touch base with the active and the receptive parts of yourself and how they are playing out in your life. Okay? I love the idea of, because we have, and we'll get into all the fire symbolism, but, lighting a candle for the receptive part of you and lighting a candle of the active part of you and sitting there and meditating. What is doing what right now? Yeah. What is receiving? What is acting? And then bring those two flames together and light a third.
Oh, so it's the union. You find the balance and then light. Oh, I fucking love that.
Bring them together.
I love that.
And you're creating an entire new spark of life consciously. I love that. Fire. Not all of us have fireplaces or a backyard that we can have like giant bonfires, right? But there is nothing wrong with a candle that goes a long way. Yeah. And the fires, or the bell fire, or the need fire, were outside of the sexuality part, was the main focus of this holiday. Okay. Right? In Ireland, all of the fires were put out the night before, and no one was allowed to light their fires before the High King of Ireland on the Hill of Tara.
Okay, so let's say on the 30th, everybody would extinguish their fires before dusk, like their home fires, cooking fires, all that warmth, candles, all that shit. Everybody out, extinguish it, and then King wakes up, lights their fire.
Yep. And then that everybody's allowed to light their fires past that point.
Beautiful. So they're sharing the energy from this one fire that's now being passed through the community and showing the connectivity between everybody and this. Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I love that.
And that's so when we look at St. Patrick and what happened with St. Patrick's Day and all that stuff, one of the things that he did on purpose was to show his power over paganism, was to light his fire first. Oh yeah, it was a huge political statement to do what he did.
Wow.
On that day. So the fires were considered a blessing of the new season, right? And you would jump fires, the Bell fires. You would jump Beltane fires.
Oh shit.
Oh yes, for blessing and creativity and health and husbands and wives. They would some would have like 2 giant bonfires, which is the masculine and the feminine, and they would drive their cattle between it. It's gonna like burn the bugs off, kind of thing. But it's about blessing the cattle.
Interesting.
As it goes through, right? And as those fires, everybody would have their wonderful celebration. And when it died down, people would take a smoldering piece of the coal of that fire and go and light their home fires with it. And take the ashes from that and spread that over the fields, right? And one of the things that I love, though, is you were supposed to take a piece. You were not supposed to be given a piece or give a piece away to somebody else.
Oh, okay.
And that has to do with the fairy lore.
Oh, please explain. Please explain. I love the fairy lore.
This has to do with the fairy lore. So Beltane and summer solstice are 2 of the biggest hello fairies. I mean, Shakespeare, Midsummer Night Dream, like all that stuff, that's at summer solstice. But the fairies are big. Like May Day fairies are big, and they tend to walk the worlds really easily on that day because flowers are beginning to bloom, sexuality is present. There's all this stuff, and there was this lovely thought that. Because they're so present, you have to be careful. In those traditions, fairies aren't like little tiny things with wings. They can fuck with you and really fuck with you. Like they can ruin your life. They can take your children. They can make you lost forever. They can make you crazy as a loon. They can wreck all of your milk and your cows. It just keeps going.
So not your like Tinkerbell type fairy. This is like your shenanigan. Like I'll fuck you up type fairy.
This is the Grimm's fairy tale
style
stuff.
Okay.
Like this is that stuff, right?
Good.
And so you had to protect yourself because there was an honoring, but there was also you need to protect yourself as well. And so the theory is that the fairies can't make fire on their own. They have to go to humans in order to get it. And they have to get it from somebody who willingly gives it to them. And when they receive it, they have power over that human.
Interesting.
So you never, ever give a piece away or receive it from somebody else. You have to go and take it yourself.
Interesting.
Yeah, isn't that brilliant?
Wow.
I love that one. I love that one.
Yeah.
It makes you very aware.
Yeah.
On that night, you sick because the fairies would do glamour and turn themselves into humans and ask for a piece of the fire.
So you got to be very cautious about, nope, go get your own.
Yep.
Nope. Because then you'll have power over me.
Yeah. Go get your own.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I was reading not too long ago, and we might have covered this on a previous podcast, but it's somewhere in Eastern Europe area. I don't remember exactly where. It's like Norway or one of these beautiful countries, but they have a division of their government that's based off, or that the basis of this division of the government is to, let's say I'm a construction company, I want to put a new road in, right? And this road's going to go through this part of the Netherlands that's not developed yet. So I go to the government sends their ferry patrol out and says, hey, that is a protected area because we think fairies are there. Or there's like mysticalness or magicalness in that area. So you got to build your road around that shit. That is amazing to me that there's a branch of that government that's like dedicated to the mystical and says, yes, you can do that there because we don't know if there's no gnomes or fairies, but you know what? 2 feet to the right, you can't go over there, right? Because there's fucking gnomes and fairies. That, I don't know. That makes me really happy inside.
Yeah, doesn't it though?
Yes.
Doesn't it though? When you're like, wow, there's stuff beyond. When you see other cultures who understand that there's more than just the need for the road.
Right. And I mean, the damn country animal for Scotland is a unicorn.
Yeah.
And that's
we talked about that.
That's just beautiful. You know, that shows me that there's magic out there that we just forgotten about.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's also bits around the fairy lore around this with the Morris dancers and the Mayday pole, which we can get into now.
Yeah.
So the Morris dancers are those traditional kind of English style dancers that happened with the Beltane pole would wear bells on the heels, and bells were thought to be irritating to fairies' ears.
Interesting. Okay.
So when they danced, they shook the bells. So there's this really fine line between going, no, we understand, like you want to honor the fairies on that night, but you don't want to be an idiot and just disappear into those worlds, which is a whole nother thing. So there's honoring and protecting that happen in multiple ways on that night, which is important because we tend to, with all this, and believe me, I love science fiction fantasy. I read so much of it, it's ridiculous. Yeah. But there's this part where people go, oh, fairies, I'm just so excited. I'm like, okay, this is a whole nother thing here. There is a respect that has to happen because there is a power that comes with them. And not everything is just this airy-fairy thing that's easy for like humans to deal with as they so choose.
Right.
So I also think what I love is, at least shamanically, how I was taught, the respect that you have for the spirits of those worlds is really, really important. You have to be able to have this real incredible line of a sense of power. You have to be able to step into those worlds with a sense of self and power. But you also have to know when you have to bend and have some humility. And you're constantly walking that line. And I think that is a massively healthy way to walk in this world. Even with fairies. Yeah. All of those types of spiritual processes, you are walking in with respect. You're not handing over your power. Right. You're not acting like an idiot. So same thing when it comes to fairies in this world. Make your offering. Don't hand your power over. Don't hand them the coal.
Right. It's almost like there's a level of consciousness that needs to be respected for self and for everybody else while you're moving into this. And if you're not fully conscious and aware of your constitution and what you're trying to whether honor or approach, then that's when shit goes sideways. If we get in that pattern making brain of like, oh cool, Disney fairies, I know what fairies are, and all of a sudden it's like, no, this fairy has fangs and it has like, it's maybe has good intentions, but I've just fucked something up, right? So but it's having that consciousness and that awareness going into it of like, okay, cool, I need to respect all the things around me. I'm not just like, hey, look at me, I'm a human, right? I'm gonna go barrel through this and look for fairies. We're gonna find some fairies. No, get fucked. Like the fairies, if they want you to find them, they'll find you.
Yeah, just read any of the fairy tales of all cultures who work with them and have them.
Right.
None of them are like, this is fuzzy and light. So what makes us think that they're Tinkerbell? Like, so there's just a lot to kind of look at with that. But, that's where the Morris dancers with the bells, we're honoring. And we're built. The other thing is, all kinds of spirits are attracted when we're doing large-scale, powerful magic. The worlds get thin. It's like a battery, right? Yeah. So it is important when you're doing, we're basically doing a giant fertility rite for the, our land and our people and all this stuff. A lot of fun stuff shows up. And that's where, again, that's where circles are cast and bells are worn, and don't hand your, don't put your, hand your coal to somebody else, that kind of thing. So it is important amidst all of this wonderful, amazing, gigantic frivolity that there's the respect that's happening there as well.
There you go. It's interesting that the bells part, because in energy work, the way I've been taught, so my spiritual mentor was trained through the Lakota tribe. So a lot of the energy work that I practice has been kind of sifted through from her and through the Lakota traditions. And one of the things that she's taught me and that I work with is that bells repel demons, right? And so, and again, like everything's a construct, right? Good, bad, light, dark, evil, all that shit, right? It's all how we have put a story to it. Right. And so when I hear stuff like this about the fairies and the bells, it, again, triggers that idea with the demons, and not necessarily like gnarly fangs and like big horns and like, all this like demonesque type shit we see in movies. But it's like they're the entities that have their own journey ahead of them that is outside of us. Right. And if we respect and honor the mutual space shared, we're all good. If we start to disrespect or take for granted or take advantage of, that's when shit goes sideways, because we're not consciously presenting ourselves in the energy of that being, right? And so, that is just, it's really interesting to me. I'm gonna have to think about that one a little bit more. But the bells, fairies, demons, it's that energy that is what it is. There's no real story around it except what we've said as humans, but they're on their mission doing what they're doing. If we're not paying attention, maybe we become part of their mission. But if we become conscious and aware, we'll continuously be on our own mission, maybe being supported by others or helping others to support theirs.
Yeah, patterns. We start to see patterns.
Yeah.
Patterns through multiple cultures, which means then we're starting to roll into archetypes. Then we roll into the deep, deep things that make life move, no matter what is happening. So it's interesting when we hear bell or bell, all of a sudden, boom, you're thrust into something so much bigger than you, and you can feel it. It happens so quick.
Yeah.
And I love, those things happen really easily around Beltane, because there are so many cultures that celebrate, whether it's Bacchanalia or Floralia or Walpurgisnacht or all these things around this time of that driving, incredible sexual energy. It is a part of life. It is a part of stars being born and dying. It is a part, this coming together, this union, and the spark of life that it creates is literally out there for everybody, everyone, and everything.
And all it takes is a spark to start a gigantic fire. So I love that. There's it just takes a little bit. It just takes that little attention to the spark to brighten up and to warm and to add life to this entire thing that we're doing.
Yeah. I forget, was it Russia? I don't think it's Russia. But there is a country that when they would light the Beltane fire, their May King and Queen, or two people of the opposite sex, would light the fire by striking flints together. So you have the two opposite polarities striking that spark of life in order to bring that fire together, right? The union bringing something new. Right. So this is what, when we look at the story of the divine, right, there's this story that we've been continually talking about of where the god and goddess is, where they are developmentally, right? So, at spring equinox, they're, the young kids who are kind of coming out and experiencing the world and super curious and all this stuff. At Beltane, we're talking about the sexual attraction.
Okay.
And the physicality and that the coming together. And this is where, for me anyway, within the development, some people look at it as like the marriage of, for me, the marriage doesn't happen until summer solstice. For me, this is about union and sexuality and exploring, because we have the horned god, which is one of the most universal male forest pagan symbols out there through multiple cultures. But, and it is like the lusty, horny goat god, and you'll see him at Pan. You will see him in so many different ways. Cernunnos, Pan, they're all there, right? Satyrs of any kind. And they embody that very animalistic principle of the woods and the forest and life and vegetation and what it takes to survive, right? Yeah. And we have this quintessential, like, sexual... receptive, open, attracting style thing, and together they come. So, and it is about exploring themselves and what that is and impregnating life. So we have the goddess and the god in that stage coming together. They have not made any promises to each other as of yet.
Okay.
That's not what this is about. This is coming together and exploring and fertilizing and that sacred union of what happens. What they choose to do with it comes later.
Okay. So with Pan and with the horned deity you're talking about, is that been demonized towards the devil? Is that okay? Because the fire, the sexuality,
That's that's so easy. Like there's a part of me that went, couldn't you even have worked a little harder on that? That one is just so obvious. That's so easy and so obvious right there. But it is. That's part of it. You're taking something that embodies the ultimate power of any of the pagan belief systems in certain ways. And you have it's smart. It's really smart when you're moving more into a religious belief system that works around the concepts of purity and what that means, and moving away from the environmentally sacred, more towards the cerebral style, very high vibrational, white light-ish kind of style of expressing divinity, getting it out of the body and more into the energetics in a certain way. It's really that was a very smart way of shifting that. And hey, that worked. It did. It worked really well.
Gosh, it's just so interesting just to go back and like see how a lot of this stuff kind of came to be. And again, a lot of it is assumptions. Like we can assume, we put ourselves in places, but also there is written context up to a certain point that we have, and discerning and looking through some of that stuff. And it's hard not to come to these conclusions of we've been manipulated into thinking that we're not divine, that we don't have the fire, the power. I mean, if just with Beltane and the devil, we just explained, like demonizing everything about creation, sexuality, your own sexuality, other sexuality, embracing of the explorations. Like we've just demonized all of that as far as religion goes, because there's too much freedom in that. If you can access all that through yourself and you can have your own fire and you can talk to your own God, where's the need for the clergy? Yeah.
And even, and I love how sexuality has changed and developed and our identification and how that goes. And what I love a lot about Beltane is it doesn't, sure, you can get very literal if you want, but that's not what this is about. You have an active and a receptive principle in you at all times, and it doesn't matter whether you have a vagina or a penis. You have these things within you, which means anybody can represent the goddess and anybody can represent the god, and figuring out where you are on that scale. And that can be a changing thing for you, which I love.
Beautiful.
That adaptation of what this can be. And that's why I love the idea of the two candles. Where are you on this scale?
Yeah.
Honoring that and then bringing them together in that way, however that may be for you. I love, especially on Beltane, how do you choose to present? and step into it.
Right.
Really step into it on that day. It's not like you don't year round, but maybe the word should be more celebrate it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
unabashed. Be that human.
Unabashedly celebrate that. And that's why, it's always astounding to see a really giant pagan community celebrate Beltane.
Yeah.
You're like, every single flavor, color, splash of everything possible is there.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is astounding.
I love
and that for some, it's terrifying.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
For some, this is like, I. And then others, it's the freedom that everybody's looking for.
You're right.
In a different way. And for others, it's stretching muscles of acceptance. And that's really, 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 really important, And to me, what if our children understood this from day one? What if they weren't afraid? And, what if they were taught from the beginning that sex is is a sacred act?
Right.
This is a sacred act that brings life to the world and creates respect between everybody involved. If you were taught that from day one.
Right. We wouldn't demonize it. We'd have an understanding of it. There's so many examples of that too. Like there's a book I read a while back called The Fifth Sacred Thing.
Oh,
right?
Starhawk.
I love that book so much.
Everybody loves that.
There's like
all the pagans have read that 12 million times.
Right. And I think they get more towards the end of the book, after the First War, when they start to have some of the people from the overt side, right, come out and start to move more towards the table, right? Yeah, well, you always have a place at our table, right? So you have these people that were bred into being war machines that are now starting to find that, okay, maybe I don't want to be part of that. But one of the things that they do for these folks that have been born and bred into fighting, some of the deprogramming that they use is sexuality. And you go to the sex temples and you learn how to love, not just others, but yourself, and feel pleasure and feel, okay with that. And then after reading that, I'm like, that's a beautiful idea, and then I look back and that's what the Romans used to do. They'd go on these big conquests and go take shit and burn stuff and fight and all do the shit. But before they came back to their wives or their homes or their families or whatever it is, they would go visit these sex temples and get that energy out. That, it's like when the zebra gets chased by a lion and it gets away and then it shakes, right? It's got to get that energy out because it's stored up. If you just take that war energy home to your family, shit's going to go sideways, right? So have an intermediary to release some of that energy in a very beautifully respectable, mutually understood way. And there you go, right?
I mean... this is what, you could get as literal, it's a day, put on your altar your vibrator and your Benoit balls.
Fuck yeah.
Put them out there. This is whatever it is that represents that sexual union or that sacred union for you, super important. And that's where, that's where the Beltane pole, the maypole comes in. That is a giant act of fertility magic. You have a tree that usually, we see it, and it's been in English, Scott, all these different cultures. There is a tree that is in the center of town, and it around it is different ribbons and things like that, and everybody holds onto a ribbon and you're dancing, and usually there are men and women, and the men are going one direction and the women are going the other direction. So for us, it can be whoever's active is going one direction, whoever's receptive is going the other direction, and then there are dances, and you're weaving this energy of fertility and happiness and joy into basically a tree, which is a gigantic phallic symbol that has been put into a hole in the ground, which is the open womb of the goddess.
I love that.
Right? It is joyous and really, it's so direct.
Yeah.
There's nothing subtle about it at all. Not in the least. It's so direct. I remember when I did it for the first time here with some people, I had people come up to me and go, I didn't realize, I know what a maypole is, but this whole process of getting the tree and putting it in and having a group over here around this and having a group she goes, it's very sexual. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is. And that's the point.
Yeah, right.
That is the point. There was another one. What was another tradition which I loved? The broom, right? the broom is a symbol of multiple things in paganism. Household chores, domesticity, different things. But you have a pole around a bush.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Same
Holy
thing.
Jesus Christ, that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, you just leaned back and realized what I just said.
I'm never going to sweep the floors the same again.
Yes. Then drop the mic. My job's done here. Right. We're done. Now I know why I came today.
Oh my
done.
God, that's amazing. You literally have a pole in a bush.
Yes. Yep.
You could be more obvious, but at the same time, it's taken me 42 years to understand that.
Exactly. And one of the old traditions is the women would go ride the besom, or the broom, over the fields.
Is that where witches' brooms and stuff like that
Yeah,
came
some
from?
of it, yeah.
Some of it?
Yep.
Interesting.
Some of it is.
Wow.
Yeah. So, because that's an entirely different conversation for a different day.
All right.
But yeah, it is, again, a very sexual act.
Yeah.
When you think about it. So there are so many versions of how you can symbolically create this for yourself. Right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to have sex that day. You don't have to masturbate. You can create whatever symbol works for you to bring polar opposites together to create life. As literal or symbolic as you want.
Yeah.
However you want to rock that, however you want to roll that.
Okay.
Which is really, really lovely. Because there's so much creativity, that creative spark. Beltane is about the, creative spark as well. I love things like bees and honey are a big thing on this day. Watching them gather and pollinate and all of those things. So honey is a great way of, and mead, like honey mead.
Oh, honey mead, yeah.
Honey
okay.
mead.
All right.
Which culture was it? I think it was in Italy. I love this concept. Right around Floralia, I believe, there was this whole, you would drink mead on Beltane, okay? Made from the flowers and the honey from the previous year, right?
Okay.
But their celebration, lasted more than one day. And all of the wine from the previous year had to be drunk by the night before.
Oh, challenge accepted.
Just saying.
Good Lord.
I know. Any of the old year wine had to be drunk by the night before, and the flowers gathered and to be able to be created and made for the next day.
Wow.
So, and honey was considered the nectar of the gods in Roman and Grecian worlds. So we have, and mead, I believe in Irish Gaelic, mead means the center, and it has connotations towards the word spirit, of stepping into the center. So actually to drink it is to step more to the center of the gods.
Interesting. Which in English translation, that makes sense to me because median is the midpoint of,
Right.
an object of some sort.
Right. So to drink mead means stepping towards the union.
Interesting.
Which I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And then there's all that sexuality with the honey and the flowers. And, flowers are such a big thing on the day. Is usually, women, like in different cultures, women were anybody who, especially the available women who were looking for partners, were decorated in a lot of flowers. And there's all kinds of flower traditions that, and, you decorate your altar, you decorate your brooms, you decorate the pole, you decorate, everything is flowers that are blooming at this time of year. And I believe it was in Romania, Edelweiss, in Romany. Yes, in Romany, the men, if they were serious about a particular woman, would hike into the Alps, into the peaks of the Alps, where Edelweiss, that flower, grew. And they brought it back, and on May Day, presented it to the woman of their desire. And if they accepted it, they were as good as engaged.
See, now it's stuff like that reminds me of like natural, like the dances that nature does, right? So like let's just take birds for example, like how there's these beautiful ornate dances that generally male birds will do to attract female birds, or some kind of like dance like that. Whether it's like pluming their feathers or like big stuff, making something out of like twigs and stuff and then dancing around it. Like that ritualisticness to me, like I love, and it reminds me also of, when I read stories like the Mahabharata, where they're talking about like back in, I guess this would be 6,000 years ago, where they talk about like how men would go out and find like their love's favorite flower or favorite animal or something like that. And there's this big ritualisticness around presenting this gift of their love towards their partner.
Yeah, and the gift's not easy to come by.
Yeah.
You usually have to work pretty hard to get it.
Right. You have to show the dedication. There's some kind of like maybe a ritual or some kind of like test around it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's pretty brilliant.
Wow.
I love any of those traditions. Just reading about all the different types of traditions and seeing how you can incorporate that into your life. I love one of my favorite things in the world is creativity around ritual. It's something that makes me incredibly happy. Like my little Irish da, he would sing this song. I remember as a kid, he would sing this song, and I don't think he even realized that it's kind of like it's almost like a Beltane song.
Okay.
It's called Coming Through the Rye. If a body meet a body coming through the rye, if a body kiss a body, need a body cry. Every lassie has her laddie, none they say have I. Yet all the lads they smile at me when coming through the rye. So
beautiful.
Funny enough, that has a bit of a hint of what would happen on the Beltane nights, because there was a bit of a rule in different countries that you could go have sex with whomever you wanted on that night.
Oh.
And if you disappeared into the woods and blessed the fields, and if a body meet a body coming through the rye.
Interesting.
If a body meet a body, need a body, like all of that.
Interesting.
Coming
So
through the rye.
relationships be damned. We're just,
because the night was about
fertility
and blessing the fields.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there is a lot of that, the whole concept of, as the lights go down and the Beltane happens, and all of a sudden you see people coming back in from the woods with like twigs in their hair, and off you go. You're like, yay!
Thanks for doing your duty.
Yes!
Fertilize that land out there.
Exactly. And, it was considered that any children conceived on Beltane were sacred.
Oh, yeah.
Sacred, whether in or out of wedlock.
I was going to ask that as my follow-up question.
At a certain point. I mean, obviously, as we went into, once Christianity came involved and things kind of changed when we moved from that sacred sexuality point to this. So, yeah, there's always that great image, of that sexuality. And I'm always careful about saying, too, if you do have sex on that night, make sure you are aware of whether you want children or not. Just be very, very aware, because Beltane mistakes happen.
That should be a good shirt.
Beltane mistakes happen. You just gotta kind of watch that in different directions.
Yeah.
But I love the more of these old traditions that we find, and I'm not so purist in many ways. I like to hear what they are and adjust them to what's happening today, so that you are still there's a through line. There's something that's coming and moving, and if there's anything that I love about paganism, Wicca, is it is not a dead spirituality. It is constantly changing. It recognizes the only thing constant is change.
Yeah.
And that, with every single cycle that comes through, Beltane's a little different. It's a little different every time. What is different? What is unique? What is changing? It never goes, do it this way all the time. Right? So nothing just gets dead or stagnant. It's always moving through and knowing where on that spiral things are happening. So yeah, I'm always excited when Beltane happens. There are very few pagans who aren't.
Yeah.
They just get very, very happy. And there's other things. I love like having a May King and a May Queen. So, when you do the maypole, the last two standing out of all the people with the last bit of ribbon are your May King and your May Queen.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And they are kind of royalty for the night, royalty for the day. And they light your bellfire.
Okay.
Yeah, the two light their bellfire, and there's usually, you have these beautiful flower circlets on their heads and all those things. So it's actually that fun kind of exciting, who's going to be the last two?
Right, yeah.
Who's going to be the last two, And those two, are also, it's almost like they're the carriers of that spark from then until summer solstice.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a responsibility, too, to the community. And it's a giant divination. The gods choose. Who are the two?
Yeah.
On that day, it's you two.
There you go.
And so there is a lot of the time, even when you get down to it, if you are one of the last two, it really is important to sit there and ask yourself, because anytime it gets down to me, I'm always shocked. It's really interesting. When it gets down to me, I'm like, really? Me?
Yeah.
But that's good. Like you need to go, I'm being chosen to recognize that energy within myself, whether or not I do that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Something is saying, recognize this and share this. So that's another thing for you to be able to do for yourself is what is really creative and kind of under your skin and pushing you at this time, and how are you being pushed to share it?
That's that listening, that deep listening.
Yeah.
And I love that. There's so many rituals that surround these types of celebrations and these type of remembrances that it really, it makes me want to find rites of passages that fit for the culture, right? And I think one of the problems that we have in the West right now is that we don't have a rite of passage. Like we just say, okay, you're 18, get out there and make me proud. My daughter's 18, and I'm like, there's no way that I would expect adultness from this child right now. But, I also think, again, referencing a book, there's this book, Aldous Huxley's The Island, right? And where he talks about this protopian kind of society that's understandingly separating itself from civilization because it doesn't agree with capitalism and all this stuff. So it's created its own society revolving around rites of passages for children, revolving around open sexuality and understanding and talking about, revolving around taking what they call moksha medicine once they reach a certain age, so sitting with plant medicines at the age of like maybe 16, 17 to learn about life, and there's these rites of passages, and that's one of those rites of passages is sitting with that medicine and then having that become part of your practice. But, there's such beauty in going and get the flower for your loved one from this beautiful place in the high of the Alps and like accomplishing that task and feeling whatever you feel from that because you've just experienced something that is delineating from this moment on, you'll never be the same again. Right. And I think we need that. And so stuff like this reminds me of how much I really want to find some kind of rite of passage or some kind of way that we can have that for this.
That's why I'm a big proponent of initiation. I teach students in Wicca. And, there are those who have a real problem with initiation in that they don't like the concepts of secrecy. And the thing is people don't face themselves if they know everything going in.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to trust your teachers, right? But initiation is, it means to begin something, right? In Wicca, you tend to study for a year and a day first. Then you're initiated, if you choose, right?
Okay.
But you within initiations, there is a moment where you are faced with the fact very clearly that there is no going back. There is absolutely no turning back. You walk through this door at whatever level you're initiating in, right? In Wicca, there are 3 levels of initiation, right? And they have different representations for each. each door holds its different energies and responsibilities and all those things. When you go through that door, there is no going back. You are taking vows, they're not retractable.
Right.
They're not.
Yeah.
So the deal is because you make those vows, they follow you for the rest of this lifetime. Usually others as well, depending, right? So initiating should be slightly scary.
Right.
It really should.
Yeah, make you know that this is what you want to do.
Yes.
You're in the right space. You've thought about this because there's not fucking going back.
Yeah, there is no going back. You go through that door, you are changed forever. And you have the choice right now, and it's perfectly fine to not do that. And just be a part of the outer circle.
Yeah.
Come to the big festivals. Now you have a certain basic understanding of Wicca. Great, whatever that is. Going through this door, though, means living that life.
Yeah. It's interesting. The way you explain that right now is, for me, reminds me of the first time I consciously chose to take a hero's dose of psilocybin.
Oh, yeah.
And so before then, I fucked around with mushrooms, and I say fucked around because I never sat with them spiritually or ceremonially. I was just like, at parties or whatever, whether it was high school or mainly high school. And when I was gotten to my late 30s, mid 30s, when I started doing self work, is when I, reintroduced myself to psilocybin. And I took a couple sessions, just fun stuff, a couple grams, watching movies, stuff like that. But I kept hearing this thing of like, you're not doing the right kind of work, right? There's work for you to do here. It's not just take some stuff and we'll look at the wall for a couple hours, right? And which is fun, has its place, But I remember, so I was sitting outside. And I made a cup of tea with mushroom tea, and it was like 6 grams of mushrooms, like hero's dose. Like I'm going fucking at it. I'm going for it. And I remember I sat outside, meditated, and I did my meditation. I blessed the liquid, and I drank the liquid. And then I sat in that meditation, and within like 10 minutes, my body was like, fuck. Oh, fuck. Maybe not my body, my body, not my consciousness. Like, fuck, oh my God, what did you just do? And the mentality that came into my head, and this is something, I can't remember who told me this, but the mantra that came into my head was, you've taken a medicine and the medicine is now working, right? And it was that initiation for me of like, there's no going back from this. Like, we're in this now, right?
You're on the ride.
Yes, I'm on that ride. And it's like you were saying with that initiation, like I basically made that vow. I'm going to experience this journey from this exterior being welcoming you inside me. There's no going back. And there hasn't been. From that day, there's been no going back. There's always just been another door to open and figure out. Sometimes it's a backwards door because we fall sometimes. But a lot of times that progression has been forward into more of these rituals and these understandings that I'm like, oh shit, here we go. There's another door not to come back from. We're going through it,
And those moments mark something very special. And they don't happen often in your life. They are, when they show up, they're 1 in a million. And you have a choice in those moments. And, in an American culture, we believe that we can have whatever we want, whenever we want. Yeah. And if we don't like what's presented in front of us today, there'll be 50 million other options tomorrow. Whether it's a car or a person or a job or whatever, we just believe everything is reduce, reuse, recycle, or whatever's coming new, right?
Yeah.
But when initiations occur, that is not the case. You miss it in this lifetime, maybe next one, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just... it brings you back to a place of dedication, commitment, fortitude, sacredness, and slowing the fuck down in order to do it. To be sure, really, really sure about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what Wicca At least for me, that's what Wicca has been about, because I'm old school. I was brought up in the day and age when this stuff was just coming into being here.
Yeah.
Right? And it wasn't every other book that you turn around that has another spellcraft and self-initiations. And I'm not putting down self-initiation. Believe me, people can go through these moments on their own, between them and their gods.
Yeah.
However that is. But the constant access of it makes it seem less special. We don't have to work for it anymore. It's just there with a pretty bubble pink banana cover with it just handed to you like sugar.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
How, and then we balk. Like I find there's this balking around, what do you mean? When I teach a certain thing, certain people are like, what do you mean I actually have to read that? What do you mean there's an assignment?
Right.
What do you mean I have to actually go do things? What do you mean I have to write an essay?
Yeah. Can I just pay money and get certified? Like, what the fuck? Why do I have to do the things?
What do you mean this is going to take a year and a day?
Yeah.
Yeah. I find that there are those who are like, oh yes, all of that makes utter sense, and they're ready. Mm-hmm. They're ready. They can feel it in their bodies.
Yeah.
That they are ready for this type of thing. And it's really okay if you're not.
Right. That reminds me of one of my favorite allegoric stories. Comes from the Buddhist tradition. So Buddha was sitting down with his disciples and giving them feedback. We've been in the program for a while. I want to give you some feedback on how you're doing. And so first disciple Buddha sat with, the disciple sat down, and Buddha said, okay, so hey, we've been working together for about 10 years now. You're doing great. You're on track. You're doing all the stuff. All things happening. But I told you you'd find enlightenment within about 15 years. It's going to be 20, right? So you're on track. You got about 10 more years. So not 5, but 10 years. Disciple's like, hey, Buddha, you know what? You said 15 years. I don't have an extra 5 years under my belt. Get fucked. I'm going to go somewhere else, right? Buddha's like, hey, no problem, man. Do what you do. Second disciple comes in, same conversation. Buddha sits him down and says, hey, you've been doing great. Told you you'd find enlightenment within 10 years. It's actually going to be 25 years, right? So you've got another 15 years, but you're on track. Again, you're doing great, right? It's just going to take some time. And the disciple just sat back in his chair and was like, I'm on track. It's fucking awesome. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Just knowing that I'm on track is great. And so it just, knowing the fact that what I feel is taking me towards what I think is right for me, right? I'm not manhandling my way through it. I'm not trying to bulldoze my way into this understanding. It's like I'm following those subtle voices, those subtle energies that draw me towards what I'm going towards. And don't matter how long it takes, doesn't matter what I got to do to figure it out, I'm on the path of figuring it out. Right? And some humans can accept that we're on the path, and other in this instant gratification world that we live in, we want it now. And if we don't, what's the next thing I can get? When we don't get that, what's the next thing? It's like the idea of sitting with sensations. Like we're so in this country where when this idea of not being able to sit with good, bad, or unpleasant sensations. We want just to get to that next thing. And so how do you sit with your sensations? How do you sit with your understanding? How do you find the patience to walk the path that might take longer than you thought?
Mm-hmm. And that's all of those. At least I love, again, I say this, the wheel of the year makes it so that you have to experience all of them. Right. So that when you get to each one, you can really lean in the way that you need to. Like Beltane, Beltane is Venusian, man. It is, they had bacchanalias at this time. And when we look astrologically, Venus rules Taurus. I'm a Taurus rising, and I always think of it in Beltane terms because Tauruses love the tactility of life, right? It's not just a smell; it's like the most glorious smell you've ever smelled, or the most astounding piece of music you've ever heard that makes you weep, or the most incredible meal that just makes you grab the table and lean backwards with every bite. Yeah. The feeling of silk or whatever it is, it's as tactile versatile and gorgeous that as you can get it. And that's exploring that at Beltane is important. On that day, it's like, cover yourself in glorious lotions and smells and, wear all the things that make you sassy, and the smells and the food and the sex and all of it. Very Venusian, very physically embodied.
Yeah.
Because out of all of them, this is so physical.
Yeah.
This is so unbelievably physical to celebrate being incarnated in this body. Beltane!
Hell yeah. I don't think there is a correlation between them, but when I was reading about Beltane and, through our conversation that we've been having, it kind of reminds me of Burning Man. And I haven't been to Burning Man, so I'm not, I just know ancillary stories and stuff. But, with the, because I know within Beltane, one of the other things I don't think we've talked about or maybe brushed over was the Wicker Man, right? And that's kind of like the burning of, kind of idea. But again, that just took me towards Burning Man because I know that they make this big structure, the whole community makes it and then they burn it. But it's very like, I guess what we would call hedonistic, like there's sex, there's drugs, there's music, there's like exploration, there's all this like community get together and like, let's kind of like you're talking about Beltane, like bodies meeting in the night, shit's happening, it doesn't matter from where they're coming from. But again, like it's because I think Burning Man's in like August, September. So months after what Beltane would be. But just, it's funny because that correlation for me was like one of those first Western things that kind of popped into my head from just the research I was doing was.
Yeah. And the Wicker Man, at least in my tradition, tends to be more towards fall.
Okay.
So the Wicker Man tends to be the sacrifice of the god when you make an effigy of him and set him on fire.
Okay.
Yeah. So for, in Gardnerian styles, which I was trained in, the Wicker Man comes a bit later.
Okay.
At least for me. While for me, Beltane is more about the union of those two. I mean, I guess you could make a very androgynous figure and set the whole thing on fire and call that whatever you need to do, which I love the idea of. But yeah, it tends to be a little more towards the other direction. But I remember the very first time I've never been to Burning Man either, but I remember the very first time I heard about it, I'm like, you burn a big, okay. And I know that Burning Man has nothing to do with organized pagan religion in any way.
Right.
But you burn a big, giant effigy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just saying. I'm just, this is, okay.
Yep.
Okay, this was started a long, long time before Burning Man even existed, so this is really interesting right here. But again, glorious. There is this symbol or this ritual that resonates. There is something there is something so unbelievable about all of that artistic installation, from
Right.
what I understand of Burning Man. It is about the exploration of art.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And to have it roll over into this burnt effigy, to me is just, well, we're kissing the spiritual. We're just hovering. We're just rubbing it a little bit. Just a little.
So I wonder if, in a few hundred years, we have written documentation, whatever kind of, people look back and the 21st century, what did the 21st century have? What kind of rituals? And they see things like Burning Man. It's like, I wonder what, 500 years from now, what that will be looked at as. Would that be looked at as, like parts of our culture recognizing of some kind of, moment in time or that delineation or that crossover or that understanding of sexuality or art, but how these things will be looked at like 500-600 years from now, like we're looking at, what people did 500-600 years ago in the past.
Yeah. We think, when you look at things like those gigantic experiences of art, is what happens when the creative spark, at least in my opinion, of the divine comes through into this reality. So to me, that's a giant ritual anyway.
Right.
The entire experience is a huge, beautiful dedication and doorway. At least, because I'm pagan, that's the lens through which I see it. For others, that's not the case. It's just exploring for lack of a better phrase, the hedonistic or the things that are not determined by culture to be okay or not okay.
Right. Yeah.
And to be able to really engage your body. You're in a desert situation, and that is, the limitations and the expectations of the body and what that is becomes very, very clear in situations like that. It's so much of that is so powerful. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing style thing, but it has nothing to do with divinity, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's awesome. It gives, what a wonderful place for the atheists to play. It's not that I'm not saying that the people there are atheists. Because they're not.
Yeah,
Believe me, there are many pagans who go to Burning Man, really, right?
Yeah.
But what an amazing place for people who are actually atheists to just get in to an open situation like that and just have at it.
Yeah.
And what's most important about all situations, anything like that, is even though there's freedom, there is honor and respect in all situations.
Right. Yes.
And that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, what you said about about atheists, because, I know plenty of atheists, right? Beautiful people, not to say they're not, and not to say atheists don't have their own rituals. They're just not connected to like a spirit or a deity.
I don't know. I wonder, do they? I bet they do.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I have some atheist friends that have like their own personal rituals, because, again, it's like you still have an understanding of like yourself, like the self. There's just not a divine you're connecting to. So you can still have rituals around the self, around honoring the self, around cleansing the self, and even, I know some atheist friends that I don't know if, like what degree of atheism you would call this, but that have an understanding of energy as well, right? There's still like this Tao kind of like chi kind of energy kind of in our bodies. It comes from somewhere, right? And you can have the complete quantum physics, kind of understanding of life and to take out the spiritual side of it and just be like, energy is quantum and it does this and does that and it follows these rules, but it doesn't follow these rules. Go fucking figure. But there's still, this understanding under the umbrella of atheism, right? So there's still there can still be those rituals still.
Yeah, and there's always a place. What I love is however you choose to express yourself, whether it's this is energy or there's a goddess and a god or there's nothing or, it's Abrahamic or whatever it is. What I've always liked, and it's one of the main things that drew me to paganism, Wicca, is that they're all correct. They are all correct.
Yeah.
And there's room for every single version of it all.
Fuck yes. What a beautiful way to end it. I love that. So before we actually end, is there any final parting thoughts? Because we went over the ways to celebrate, what the rituals are, when it's going to be,
Yeah. Too, I like, whatever it is with the light a candle.
Okay.
On that day. It's your bell fire. It's your need fire. I gave the examples of an active and a receptive and doing that and bringing that together and lighting one, right? But that's a bigger play. Light a candle. Have your moment. And anything that you need purified or blessed, run it over that flame, right? Whether it's a piece of jewelry or a concept or whatever. If you're asking for healing, write down what that is. Burn it in the fire. There's also something lovely too, which can be fun to do. Don't use your stove the night before. Don't use your microwave. Don't use your stove. Do only cold food.
So that's our putting out the fire.
Putting out the fire.
Ah, I love
putting
that.
out the fire.
Okay.
Shut that off, right?
Yep.
And then, after you do your own candle moment, take the candle over to your stove. Place it on the stove. Then turn your stove on.
Oh, yeah. All right.
To have your own, because it was considered in the Celtic lands to be bad luck to light that before then.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you have that moment any way you want to do it. If you have a fireplace, take that candle, light your fire.
Okay.
If you have an outdoor hibachi.
Yeah.
I love, I love the creativity of pagans. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It can be like, turn on your little electric stove, take it out to your chimney. Here's the hibachi. However this goes, you use your fire and tap into what is sassy in you now and share it.
Whew, challenge accepted. I got a lot of sass in me. Well, Danica, you're the best. Thank you so much. So our next episode is going to be for summer solstice.
Summer solstice, yeah.
Right, 21st. And then in August, well, there's that next celebration I can't pronounce.
Lunasa. Or Lunasa.
Lunasa, yeah. And so, we still got a few more episodes under our belt. I think we started with Samhain, right?
Yeah, we started with Samhain. So we'll do summer solstice, we'll do Lunasa, and we'll probably do autumn equinox.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, we will see you back here for summer solstice.
All right.
All right. Thank you again. Thank you so much for spending time with Danica and I. Please check out the show notes for ways to get in touch with Danica or to learn more about Beltane. Also, ways to support the show. Obeisance and love. We will see y'all next time.